Do you think it's okay to build a mock-up out of cardboard and cut everything out with a pair of scissors? No, seriously, do you think it's okay to use tape on your mock-ups and ruin the form like this? If you answered yes to any one of those questions and you think building a cardboard mock-up with hot glue is acceptable, then this video is not for you.
My name is Eric Strebel. I'm an industrial designer. Welcome to my channel about product design and making.
For some projects, cardboard, mat board, chipboard, or whatever you call it, is the ideal material to make your early mock-ups out of. It's very cheap and versatile. Incredibly useful. Some good tools for building stuff out of cardboard and mat board are a good cutting board, of course, like this Arteza mat board that I have shown here, some white PVA or Elmer's glue as it's known here in the US, x-acto, and lots of x-acto blades, nice sharp ones, of course, a ruler, tape, and I like to have a little square. And the little secret ingredient for this project is this squeezable lure lock bottle, so I can dispense a very tiny amount of glue and have a lot of control. You can find the link to those below from my eBay store. Let's make something nice and simple. We'll start out with some basic boxes made out of cardboard and chipboard. Let me show you how I make them. I like to use a nice white Bristol board that has a uniform inside. This is a Canson Bristol board, and it's the same color white on the inside as it is on the outside. We're going to start by cutting two strips. One is 2 inches minus the thickness of whatever board you're using, and the other one is just about 2 inches thick. So we're going to cut 4 squares from the thinner strip that is slightly less than the 2 inches, with subtracting the thickness of the board. When we cut these, we're going to cut them to 2 thicknesses less than 2 inches, because we're going to have a top and a bottom cap that goes on these things. We're going to pre-assemble all 4 pieces. We're going to use some blue painter's tape because it's not aggressive and it doesn't hold on to the paper very good, but just good enough to glue everything together. And you're going to overlap these 4 pieces to make a box, so there'll be 1 overlap on each side, and we're going to tape it all together. The tape keeps the glue from oozing out and getting everywhere, keeps everything exactly in the right position, just the way you want. I'm going to use a square and a weight here, and we're going to keep it all nice and tight so that it can dry. It won't take that long, actually. The paper soaks up the PVA quite quickly, maybe 5 minutes or something like that. Now we want to add the end caps, and this is the reason why we made it 2 thicknesses less than the 2 inches, the 2 thicknesses of the mat board, of course, because we're going to have a cap on the top and on the bottom. I just dispensed the glue out there with the Elmer's glue. Now, what works even better are these lure lock caps, and they have a blunt nose tip needle on it and a little cap, perfect for applying glue on the edge of your cube. Again, link below for those. Now, another way to make a cube is to make the 4 centerpieces out of 2-inch strip, or just slightly less than 2 inch, and you're going to cut each one of those to the 1 thickness less than 2 inches so we can overlap them. Have a piece of Bristol board and then the thickness of the Bristol board itself. That will make the side of the cube. We're going to add the glue just like we did before, and we're going to fold that up into our square box. I use painter's tape to hold everything together after it's been glued from the PVA. By the way, that PVA needs to be thinned down with just a little bit of water before you put it in the squeeze bottle so you can dispense it nice and even. So we'll let that dry. We're going to use a square and a weight again, and we'll put a little bit of weight on top to keep that all nice and square. Once it's dry, take off the tape. We'll put a little glue on both ends here. And we're going to use a little bit of cardstock. It's very thin, but still pretty strong. And you most likely won't even see the thickness on the top and the bottom. And we're going to glue that on. Put the other piece of cardstock on here. We'll put a little weight on there. We'll let that set maybe 5-10 minutes, no more than that. And then we'll be able to trim it. each edge, just running right along the cardstock to get a nice, clean, simple, quick edge. And you ask, why trim it like this? It's just going to be much more exact. I could measure it out 2 by 2, but any error in the box won't be covered up. And this is a good way to have a decent box and then just cut it out kind of freehand. Boom, a couple boxes right there. Let's make one out of chipboard. But in this case, we're going to make it a little more architectural. It's going to have a little notch out of it. So if you were making a model of an interior space or architectural space, like a house or a building or something like that, chipboard is often used for that. I just mark it with my knife, and then I pull my square right up to it. And I don't even use a pencil sometimes, so just a little bit more efficient. Here I am laying out the notches that I'm going to cut out of the cardboard. You cut out your notches on each end. Make sure you save those 2 little pieces. We are going to be using those. We're going to put down our tape just like we did all the other boxes. You'll notice I don't fold it up to a complete 90 when I put that together. That allows me to put a little bit of tension on each of the corners to get it nice and tight and crisp. All right. We're going to add our glue, just like we did on the other ones, right on the edge. And of course, this Luer Lock needle, blunt nose needle works fantastic for that. Fold everything up really nice. The tape holds everything together. That's really key here. Again, we're using a square and a weight. Hold everything down. Keep it nice, 90 degrees. And we're going to have this nice brown cardboard, chipboard cube with a little notch out of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the floor on it. So that's not affected by the notch or anything like that. So we'll just lay down our PVA here, drop on the base, and we've got that all set. Now we just got to work on the other stuff, the little notches that we have here. So we're going to take those 2 pieces that we cut out before. You need to glue them together in the opposite way that the other overlaps are in the cube. And this will become very apparent when you put it together. Again, we want this piece to be nice and square. Put some weights in between both of them, and you let it dry here at a nice 90-degree angle. We're going to lay in a floor. Now, it's not worth it to cut out a little tiny piece there and figure out how to get that all connected. I just lay in a floor here. It's nice and tight, and it gives me something to lay these 2 pieces into. They fit right in, overlapped, just like the outside of the box corner is. We lay in a little bit of glue, and we've got that all put together. I'll put on a little piece of tape just to hold it while it dries, and we're going to put on the top next. All right, we're going to take a little 2 by 2 top here, lay down our glue like we have before. I'm not going to bother cutting the inside edges. It's more important for me right now to get these other outside edges looking nice, get everything all lined up, and we'll come back and we'll trim that later on. Put a little weight on here, let that dry. Once everything's dry, I'm going to freehand cut this just like I did on the previous cube, like we did the top. Very easy to run the knife along the cardboard. Here I am in an awkward position trying to make the cube face the camera. So a little bit of practice, some patience, and a little bit of pre-planning to take into account the thickness of the material that you're using, you can make some pretty nice mock-ups with cardboard, chipboard, or mat board. All right, the next video is going to be cardboard advanced basics. We're going to take a look at making cylinders and some softer cube shapes, maybe even a cone. Is this the best way to soft bend a piece of cardboard, or is there a better way? Should you be getting your cardboard wet when you're building a cardboard model? Can you paint cardboard? Find out the answers to these questions and many more. Cardboard Advanced Basics. In the previous cardboard video, Cardboard Basics, we took a look at how to make some basic cubes with a little bit more advanced construction. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to make a cylinder, a cone, and some more advanced box shapes that you might encounter every day when you're building models or interiors or architectural pieces. You'll need a good self-healing cutting board like this Arteza cutting board, link to that below, ruler, some PVA white glue, and an x-acto blade Very sharp. You need lots of blades. I can't stress this enough. Some tape, and I like a right angle to cut my corners with. You'll also need some sort of a glue dispenser. These lure locks with blunt nose tips, link below. They are fantastic for putting glue where you want. I suggest get yourself a good circle cutter. I'm using this Fiskars circle cutter here, link below, because cutting circles without a laser is nearly impossible. So let's start by making a cylinder. We're going to use this Fiskars circle cutter. The beautiful thing about this thing is it doesn't leave a mark in the middle of the circle that you're cutting out like it would with like a compass or something like that. So that's why I like this. Now this circle cutter is made for material that's a little bit thinner than the cardboard that I'm using it for. So I have to give it a little bit of a cut with the X-acto knife, but 90% of the work is already done. So to make the sides of the cylinder, we're going to wrap the cardboard around the edge of the cylinder to get the correct length. You could measure this, of course, as well, or even calculate it with some math. I just simply wrap it around. We're going to use a little bit of painter's tape to glue the two ends of the cylinder onto the 2-inch strip of cardboard here. I am using a slightly more flexible or thinner piece of cardboard for the edge that I'm rolling around the circles. We're going to lay down a little bit of white glue here with the squeezable blunt nose tip dispenser. We'll put a piece of tape on the end, and we're basically going to roll this piece of cardboard on the edge of these circles to make our cylinder. We're going to tape everything together. You want to use the painter's tape because it doesn't grab onto the cardboard as aggressive as regular masking tape would. Still a good idea to maybe stick it on your shirt one time to get a little bit of fuzzy and take some of the tack off. Because even on the cheapo cardboard, it can grab onto it and still pull off the fibers off the cardboard. I'm just making some last minute adjustments here, get everything as flat and smooth as I can, and here it is with the tape removed, nice little cylinder. One of the great things that cardboard is good for is mocking up folded sheet metal parts. Now, not all folded sheet metal parts are bent at 90 degrees. Sometimes they have softer radiuses. Sometimes they have bends in them. Cardboard is fantastic for that. So let's build a little bit more of a real world advanced cube where we take a look at maybe an inside radius, a nice fat beveled corner, and maybe a softer radius curve, and how we would build something like that to simulate either a sheet metal part or possibly like a molded part to get a good idea of what that's going to look like. So I'm going to cut the two end pieces first, and I'm basically going to make the sides and stick them on kind of like we did with the cylinder before. I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit first here, meaning I'm going to do the easy corners and edges on this simulated box part here. So we'll just lay down some white PVA glue. Again, going for the low-hanging fruit, doing the easy stuff first. This gives us a little bit of stability in our model so that when we go to do these trickier corners and bends and stuff, we have a little bit of structure inside of our model already to keep things straight and square and something we can actually grab onto. We're going to roll this edge along the this cube. I'm going to glue on the one side first, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to lay in my glue along the other edge. And we need to roll that edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little water. That's going to soften up the fibers on the outside of the cardboard. Now we're not soaking the cardboard in any sort of way. We're just allowing the fibers to expand when we roll them around that soft edge right there so that they don't tear and we don't have any issues. We soften them up. Maybe we're going to add a little bit more so that it can kind of settle and get us a nice soft radius around that corner. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to attack that larger 45-degree beveled part. And in this case, I'm actually going to bevel the little part that goes in there with a little 45 and then just glue everything in. Because those pieces that I cut, that butt up against the little part that we just cut. They have straight 90-degree cuts on them. So dropping in a little 45 on the part that you're dropping in is going to be the best way to get yourself a nice clean edge along those surfaces there. Here we're going to do something, an inside radius piece. So we're going to put water on the inside of our cardboard. That's going to allow the cardboard to stretch on the inside. And then we're going to use a piece of PVC to press it into place. I rough cut the cardboard twice because I'm going to put a rubber band around this thing, and I don't want the rubber band to cause any distortion in the cardboard. I want to let it set up and let that dry in place. And that water really helped us make that inside radius. I'm going to free cut this last edge and peel off our tape, and we're going to have a nice simulated interesting little box that's going to be a lot more like a real world part that you would make. Let's take a look at how we can make a cone. I'm going to cut a mat board part with the circle cutter here. Again, this mat board is a lot thicker and tougher than the cardboard even that we cut before, so we have to finish cutting it because that circle cutter is really not meant for that. It's meant for more like a Bristolboard here, a thin weight Bristolboard or a paper, and it cuts through that no problem. But the cardboard's a little bit tougher. We need to put a little lip on our cone here and then taper the top, just a tiny little bit of glue, and this lip overlaps the inside on both sides and allows us to glue the skirt together, so to speak, to make a basic cone. And I do this by hand, and the cone is a little oversized, and I use my fingers and the back of a paintbrush to sort of burnish and get the tip and form that correct. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where that seam is to put that cone together with on my bottom circle, and that's going to allow it to fit nice and flush. I trace where that circle goes in the bottom of the cone so I know where to put it and where to put my glue, and so that when I go back and place the bottom of the cone in, I know exactly where to put it right along that line. I'll let that set up, and I'm actually going to use the back of my X-acto here, and I'm going to burnish the outside of that cone a little bit just to get it a little bit smoother. The heat generated by the friction of burnishing it back and forth helps flatten out and smooth out the cardboard. I rough cut it to the correct shape, and then I put it on 120 grit sanding flat surface here, like a sanding pad, so that I can get the thing absolutely flat and smooth. I'm going to show you how to paint your cardboard. It needs to be sealed, and I seal it up with some shellac, and I just put that on with a paint brush. And then I put on some primer, and I'm going to show you what that finish looks like. So this is a metallic spray paint finish on the part with the shellac. It's also on the outside, and this is the bottom. It's a little tough to see here, but that's a little rougher, or quite a bit rougher actually in real life, than where we shellacked it. So you need to seal the cardboard. This is a piece of Bristol, and that's a pretty much higher quality than the regular cardboard, and that finishes up beautifully. You still do need to seal it. That completes the cardboard advanced basics. Good luck, and have fun making models. I suggest a nice flat work surface, and the bigger the better. I have two self-healing cutting mats. The light gray one here is an 18 by 24 Arteza unit, and the black one is a 12 by 18 for smaller projects. I'll leave links in the description below for both. I have my tools laid out from most useful on the left to least useful on the right. I do most of my work with an X-acto blade handle, and the one here on the left has a piece of copper. I've customized it, but I like the ones that twist on the end. You're able to get the blade much tighter than the ones on the top. I buy boxes of 100 packs. These are the hardened X-acto blades, and then I put them into this piece of foam core so the points are not facing outward and don't injure anybody. I use a rotary cutter a lot more than I ever expected. This is an Arteza unit, and you can get these replacement wheel blades. Be careful, they are insanely sharp. Sometimes a good scalpel is useful. Don't use it a lot, but sometimes it comes in very handy. These two tools on the end are absolutely not appropriate for model making. The red one is a box cutter, and while it has a replaceable blade, it's not appropriate for fine scale modeling, maybe for rough cutting, corrugated cardboard, but that's about it. The other one has snappable blades, but there's far too much movement and wiggle room, and yes, they make little Olfa ones of these, also not appropriate for model making. Also a super handy tool is a rotary cutter. This allows you to cut circles by moving this blade in and out. It has a pad in the middle that you press down on the orange handle on, and then you can rotate the blade around, and it does not leave a mark in the middle of your piece. Rulers. Get yourself a good stainless steel ruler. Do not use a plastic ruler. In this case, I have removed the cork backing off the ruler so that I can place my ruler right on the piece and not get any blade wiggle. I have also sanded and modified this ruler so that the numbers start right at the edge of the ruler. I also have a little tiny ruler for smaller stuff. This one has little tenths on it for finer measuring, always metric. This is my chinois square. It works great. It's a little machinist square, but it works great because it's raised and you can put it on cardboard and it works fantastic, and I'll leave a link below. People always ask about that. A nice digital caliper is also good. This can switch between imperial and metric, although I never use the imperial. Why anybody does anything in fractions is just beyond me. It's stupid. Metric is just so much easier, times 10. An idiot can figure it out. So for adhesives, I mainly use a white glue. It's a PVA, school glue, stuff you've used since you're a little kid. It doesn't stain, and it bonds very well. Sometimes I put the stuff in a little Luer Lock squeeze bottle. You thin it down with some water, and it gives you great precision as well as great strength. Occasionally, I have to use some super glue. It soaks up into the cardboard. It doesn't always work great, but some kicker is also super useful for when you do use super glue so that the stuff dries a little bit faster. Sometimes I'll put the kicker on a brush and then apply that onto my cardboard first and then put the super glue on the other side to glue them together. If I'm bonding dissimilar materials, I like to use a product called E6000. I find that it bonds dissimilar materials quite well. Occasionally, I'll use contact cement if I want to get a good bond between two larger sheets. And if I'm using like paper or something like that, I'll use a Super 77 spray mount on the paper and then adhere that onto the cardboard. Really don't use scissors very much for cutting cardboard. You can't cut stuff straight with a pair of scissors, but sometimes I need to do some little fine detail work for a finer chipboard or Bristolboard or cardstock or railroad board, and a pair of hair cutting shears works really well. These are cheapo IKEA scissors, and they're general purpose scissors, just rough cutting. I do like some of these Asian shears that gives you great leverage and you can get your whole hand in them, and so they work really great for rough cutting cardboard as well. These are some Western sewing shears. They're just kind of heavy duty and also work good for rough cutting chipboard or corrugated cardboard. It goes without saying that a regular pencil is a good thing to have when you're working with cardboard. Anything will do. Sometimes you need a white pencil for marking on, let's say, black cardstock or something like that. A pen can work, but it'll tend to leave marks from the ball. And you can use a Sharpie for general marking or even a regular size Sharpie. A good eraser is nice. I don't like to erase stuff very much, but you want a white one and not one of those pink ones. They're much too aggressive and leave marks. The white one will generally not leave a mark. A pair of tweezers is good. These are nice as well, as they lock and are good for placing objects or clamping things in a pinch. A pair of hemostats can also work. I don't use them a ton, but sometimes you just need a hemostat. You just never know. Good tool to have. These are now weights. They used to be molds for a project that we did. They were pressed into glass to make some thumb holders, but they are just good weight, and I use them a lot for gluing stuff together. They're right angle, and they hold stuff straight. Oh, a pencil sharpener. That's also pretty useful for sharpening your pencil when you're working with cardboard. In general, I probably use a blue painter's tape the most. It has a low tack to begin with, and it's good for holding cardboard together. It doesn't stick, and it's not aggressive on the fibers. If I do need some tape to match a white, I'll use this white artist tape or a black artist 3M tape. If I really want to stick something together forever, I'll use this VHB. This is clear Scotch tape. Avoid it. It makes your stuff look like you're a fifth grader and you don't know what you're doing. You never really want to use that for model making. Occasionally, double-sided tape is, however, useful for sticking two pieces of cardboard or mat board or something together, and that works really nice if you don't have spray adhesive, let's say. Sometimes I use this blue tack from Loctite, and it's sort of an adhesive, but it's just good for holding stuff together, maybe while you glue it or while the glue dries. It doesn't stain. It's non-permanent. I just like it as a versatile adhesive. Sometimes you need to clamp your cardboard together. These pony clamps are a little bit too strong. They have too much clamping force and leave marks. This is nice for putting maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of cardboard together and getting a little bit of pressure on them. These are also nice as the jaws are flexible and move, and there's lots of surface area here to press the two pieces together and they don't leave a mark. These are kind of reverse tweezer clamps. I don't know what the actual name is, but you press them and they come apart. It's good for holding stuff together. These are a little bit angled and good for placing things on a scene or on a set for very small stuff. I have a whole box of more clamps, mainly these binder clips, although these are little mini pony clips right here and they come in handy as well. But the binder clips have a big long surface area. They do have a fair amount of tension on them, but gosh, they're super handy if it's not important or not visible, and they grip really well, and they come in just so many sizes, and they're readily available. Also, these clothespins are really nice. They don't have a lot of force, which is nice, but they're good for just holding stuff together when you just need a nice light touch. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Make sure to hit the bell so you get notifications every time I have a new video. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links in the description below and on the channel page. Rock on. Don't forget to check out the t-shirts and hoodies in the merch shelf below. Click here to check out some of the other design and making videos that I have that you might enjoy.